What's going on, everybody? Welcome, welcome. Good morning. We are doing a bit of an update for y'alls. Let me go ahead and get everything up and running here. Here we go. Good morning, everybody. Hope everyone is doing well, doing fine. Let me go ahead and get this up here real quickly. So we're going to be doing a morning update on Now Invest 93L. Got a system. What's up, Western? What's up, Jim? Welcome, y'all. Hope you guys are doing well. Give me 1 second, y'all. All right. All right, everybody. So we got ourselves a new update for y'all. We now have a decent probability of development here from the Hurricane Center here. So let's go ahead and bring over the NHC outlook here as of now. So we now have a 40% chance probability of development here. This was actually a 20% yesterday around this time. So we are seeing a bit of an increase here. Let's see here. Kim says, good morning, Andrew. Good morning. Jim says, do I go to the gym? I don't know how that's relevant to 93L. But I do work out, yes. See, wait for the 8 a.m. update. Yes, yeah, that's another reason why I wanted to go live here, is because we're getting ready to likely get a new update here. Speaking of, y'all, I gotta show you guys something here. I've been working on this for a long time. It is not done yet. It is far from done. But here's our, our website here. Right? There's no watches right now. We got a Tropics here. This is the latest and greatest here. You can see we do have the risk now going across Florida and here into the northeastern and north central Gulf here. So, you know, Hurricane Center, they did mention that later on, you know, as we work our way throughout the next couple of days, that this is going to have the potential of developing into a depression, at least, you know, up across portions here of the Gulf, in which that's something we do need to look out for. Now, looking this morning, if you guys can see it here, there's that low right there. This is just off the coast of Florida right now. Let's see here. Jim says I can see this low, the central low, just east of Daytona. Yeah, this is southeast of Jacksonville area. This is, you know, just off of the Cape, you know, the Space Coast here. But you know, we do have a decent amount of circulation going on here. There's not a whole lot of convection this morning, though. You know, there's not a whole lot of, you know, storm activity associated with this. But you know, it is definitely starting to pick up a little bit here. There is actually a decent threat for flooding today, though. That is another thing I do want to talk about with you guys here. What's up, Cheryl? Hope you're doing good, my friend. Good to see ya. But yeah, if we hop over to, let's see here. We're going to bring up our flooding risk here overall. Yeah, WPC actually put a level 2 flooding threat up over Florida today. So, you know, areas out by like Orlando and, you know, Tampa, we actually do have a decent shot at seeing a bit of flooding concerns from this system, because, you know, this is getting ready to roll over Florida here within the next little bit. So that's going to be impacting us here for today. So we're going to have to look out there for that. Let's see here. Weather-wise. It's like Radar Omega 2.0. It kind of is, yeah. Seems a lot of flooding going on. Oh, yeah, it is. Look, Texas got a bit of a flooding threat going on again. You know, the south central side, we got a bit of a concern. Got a pretty decent flooding threat up in the central, you know, northern plains here in the upper Midwest. I mean, you know, we got that at least 15% chance here. I mean, we definitely could see a decent amount of rainfall out of this. It's kind of hard to see this. I can't even see the state borders here. Florida could pick up a couple of inches today, though. Here, let's pull up the multi-day. Let's go look to days 1 to 5 here. Oh yeah, holy cow! You know, this actually has a lot of Louisiana, like Mississippi, likely getting a lot of rain from that system here. Here, let me bring up the models. We're gonna take a look at the models here real quickly. That's probably, yeah, that's definitely something I do want to tune in with y'all. So let's here I'm gonna move y'all back here a little bit here. Gonna move y'all a little bit back so you guys can see the full thing here. So here's GFS. Now GFS doesn't really have a lot of anything super crazy going on out of the system here. You can just see it's just, you know, that low that works its way through the Gulf here, which eventually could, you know, end up towards like Louisiana from kind of what the models are suggesting here. You know, if we take a look over here at 93L's track, you can see that, you know, the spaghetti models, they're a little all over the place, as you can kind of tell. You know, we do have a lot of those kind of hugging the northeastern, you know, coast of the Gulf here, as well as, you know, the northern side here, which, you know, majority of those models here, you can see kind of on average have this thing, you know, likely working its way up here towards like Mississippi coast, you know, possibly towards Louisiana. You know, that's still a little bit far-fetched per se, you know, given that that is about 3 or so days out. So, you know, there is definitely room for changes between now and then. And obviously there is a bit of uncertainty still. Let's see here. Golf Girl says, keep up the great work. I appreciate it. Thank you. Appreciate it, my friend. But yeah, there is a bit of uncertainty still, you know, within the models. As you can see, you know, we do have a pretty large gap, pretty large margin here, which, you know, obviously the wider that margin is, the more instability, or sorry, not instability, the more, you know, what is it? The more that they disagree, essentially. You know, they don't agree as much, you know, the further they are spread apart. I mean, even now, you know, if we look over here at the point of now, you can see just how much some of these spread out. I mean, it's like, this is right where the storm is at right now, you know, just off the coast of Florida here on the eastern side. You know, it's going to be working its way over Florida today. But, you know, you can just see how spread out these models are. I mean, some of them have, you know, like this one down here has it going really far to the south. And then you got, you know, most of the models kind of going over towards like Ocala and some of those regions up north. You know, or north of me, I should say. But yeah, so you can see that there is still a bit of uncertainty here, you know, regarding all that. Now, the models, you know, from the spaghetti models here in terms of intensity, as you can see, majority have them under tropical storm force here. You can see that, you know, over the next several days, we're going to constantly kind of keep that, you know, 20, 30 knot margin here, you know, maximum sustained, which, you know, isn't going to be anything hyper crazy, you know, no hurricane or, you know, likely not even tropical storm as of now. But, you know, one thing I will mention, though, I mean, at the current moment, it doesn't look like this thing's going to be much of a big concern, you know, tropical storm, hurricane related. But one thing I will mention, though, is that the waters out here, they are really, really, really warm, especially off the coast of Louisiana, Mississippi, you know, where this thing's going to be ending up here. You know, more than likely, of course, you know, with the tracks here. But, you know, those waters out there, man, I tell you, they're a good 30, 31 degrees Celsius out there. That is, like, very, very, very warm. You know, but there is other ingredients that's needed for tropical development. You know, it's not just solely based off of the sea surface temperatures. You know, you got other factors to contribute, you know, such as wind shear, moisture levels, of course, you know, being a big one here. So, you know, but I will mention, though, yes, the waters are very, very, very warm, which, you know, if the other conditions were, you know, good, that would definitely allow for some pretty quick development here. Now, let's hop back over here real quickly. Let me take a look at the moisture levels here. I'm really curious. GFS, I mean, you know what? GFS does have a fair amount of moisture with this system here, as you can see. So that moisture is kind of indicated here in this bluish green color. You know, as the system does roll off Florida, I mean, you could see that a lot of the Gulf will be relatively full of moisture. So, you know, accompanied with the sea surface temperatures, you know, the moisture levels here throughout the atmosphere does seem pretty high. So we're going to have to look out for that. Is this thing going towards Fort Myers, says Cheryl. Well, let me bring up this program here. Let's go ahead and look up. Actually, I need to, first of all, get rid of that real quick. I do want to show you guys the radar and stuff like that. But let me go ahead and bring up Fort Myers here. So we can take a look at that here. Fort Myers, so we are pretty low here. This thing is going to be passing to your north. Yeah, this is going to be mostly to the north of you. You know, this morning here, if we take a look at the radar, you can obviously see that counterclockwise circulation it has to it. You know, obviously it's not super well developed and it's not, you know, extremely strong or anything like that right now. But, you know, you can obviously make out that low though, you know. You can obviously make out that central low, you know, just off the coast of like Cape Canaveral between like Daytona and Cape. You know, that's kind of right where the low is located here, you know, as of right now. You know, Jim, it's a little early to tell exactly if landfall is going to be in Louisiana even. I mean, majority of models do have this thing kind of approaching towards, you know, Louisiana, maybe Mississippi area. But, you know, it is still a little bit early to be for sure here. You know, if we actually hop back over to those spaghetti models here, you can see that, you know, once again, there is still a lot of uncertainty. I mean, yeah, most of them do have this thing, once again, towards the Louisiana, Mississippi coast. But, you know, that could change with the 12 Zulu run, you know, here, which is going to be initiating very soon. There is likely going to be some differences, of course, you know, with the models now and with the models in the future. So we are likely going to be seeing a bit of a difference here with that. But, you know, we'll just, like I said, we'll just definitely be monitoring this here. Let me see if there's any hurricane models available yet. Let's take a look at the HWRF. It does look like, oh, here we go. This is one of the hurricane models. What's up, Mark? Hope you're doing good, man. Saying finally caught live. Nice, Andrew fan. What's up, man? Hope you're doing good. So this is the 06 UTC run of the HWRF model. So first of all, this model actually has this thing going a lot higher up north than where this thing is now. So that's already a little bit of a, you know, a little bit of not right per se. This actually has that low out by like Jacksonville and some of those regions out there, which, you know, HWRF doesn't really have that. But, you know, really, HWRF doesn't really have much of anything crazy happening. I mean, even the 0 UTC run here, you know, it doesn't really fully develop into, you know, any hurricane or any tropical storm or anything like that as of right now. Now, at the point where we're at the moment, you know, I really wouldn't rule out the potential for, you know, maybe low-end tropical storm development. I would not rule it out. You know, I'm not saying it is going to happen yet. As of now, I don't think so, but I wouldn't rule it out. I definitely don't think this thing's going to get anywhere near hurricane status, so that, you know, that we don't really have to worry about right now, because, you know, even most of the models don't even suggest tropical storm. I mean, if this thing was to develop at most, from what I see right now, this thing would likely just be within the ballpark of, you know, kind of a tropical depression more than anything. So right now it's a disturbance. You know, it's not a named storm yet, of course. You know, it's still in the early stages. You know, the system's just a low, basically. You know, nothing really super crazy. But, you know, it is going to draw some impacts, though, for Florida. You know, once again, as we mentioned, you know, that flooding concern, you know, is a bit of a concern, though, you know, across a lot of, like, central Florida and whatnot here. So if we hop on back over here to, you know, the excessive rainfall outlook today, once again, you know, WPC does have a, you know, a decent flooding threat, you know, for some of the areas out in Florida. Once again, like Orlando. Here, let's use a different color here. Areas about like Orlando, you know, Cape Canaveral, you know, Tampa, Lakeland, Spring Hill, Cedar Key, you know, Ocala. You know, some of those areas here is kind of in the heavier flooding risk here for today. Sarasota. You know, some of those regions out there, that's kind of where the main flooding threat is going to be. But, you know, some of that rain is going to reach down into even the southern parts of Florida here. I mean, we do also have a little threat for flooding here, you know, a little 5% risk along the southern side, including the Keys, actually, for, you know, a little bit of flooding today will be, you know, certainly possible. Then, of course, you know, we do actually have a really big threat for flooding overall today. I mean, a lot of the Midwest, Northern Plains, you know, does have a bit of a concern with that. Mid-Atlantic even, you know, Texas, unfortunately, still dealing with a bit of flooding concerns here. You know, a little bit of, you know, Arizona and whatnot as well. So, you know, that is certainly, you know, a bit of a concern today regarding the flooding threat. All right, so let's hop on back over here to the satellite imagery. So once again, the low of the storm here, the center of the storm is located here just to the east of like Cape Canaveral, Daytona. That's kind of where it's at, right in, right in here is where that central low is located as of right now. Hopping on back over here to the satellite imagery, which I'll go ahead and pull up here. Here, let's bring this out. That's not it. That's my website. Hold on a second. Let's actually just get a new panel up here for you guys so we can take a look at that. But yeah, I mean the low is just off the western side, or sorry, the eastern side of Florida. And once again, this will be going over Florida here very, very soon. So let's go to sub-regional so we can kind of see the the big picture of everything. So we'll go ahead and zoom in out there. I'll go ahead and play this in motion so you guys can kind of see it. So there it is. It's literally getting ready to go over Florida here very, very soon. Once again, it is very disorganized still. It isn't a tropical storm. No, it's not a hurricane. Of course, it's not even a depression yet. The circulation is starting to show itself pretty well, but it's not classified yet to that degree. But like I mentioned, this is just going to continue working its way over here to the west, over the next little bit here, which will ultimately lead this thing into the Gulf. It'll reach warmer waters. It will reach, like I said, some moisture. There still will be some moisture available here. We're just going to really have to kind of see and just monitor this thing closely, because this thing could, develop into possible depression. We cannot rule out a potential storm, but it is a little early. But as of right now, we're kind of pointing towards possible depression status here. Here's the GFS ensembles here. Once again, still showing a lot of uncertainty in the track of this thing here. The track is going to have a lot to do with the outcome of this system here. I mean, some of the models, some of the ensembles have this thing kind of hugging towards, coastal Florida and, Alabama, going in towards like Mississippi or, Mississippi, Louisiana. Of course, you have a couple of those members as well that go a lot further to the south here. The track is going to be a very important factor in determining, what this thing is, going to be, really capable of doing here overall. But yeah, these are the main hurricane models that you see here. These are the main ones here. And once again, they're just scattered all over the place, as you guys can kind of tell here. Some of them go towards the north central Gulf, and then a lot of them kind of just hugging just off the coast of like Mississippi, Alabama. But I will say though, the majority as of now do have this thing kind of approaching Louisiana's coast here. So that could be possibility of that could be a possible region of quote unquote landfall, just where the system touches land essentially. So we'll definitely keep an eye out there for that overall. But yeah, that's really what's going on with the system here. Once again, it's starting to circulate pretty decently this morning, and then not a whole lot of convection with it. You can see there's not a whole lot of thunderstorm activity associated with this system here. It is relatively, still just a weak low, essentially. But, it is going to have its impacts, though, regardless, with that flooding concern and everything. If you guys have any questions, tropics related or severe weather related, let me know. We actually do have a pretty decent concern today for, let's bring this back up, for severe weather today, actually. Let's take a moment to look at that real quickly. We do got a level 3 enhanced risk today up across portions of Nebraska. We got an MCS, which, mesoscale convective system, just basically a really strong cluster of storms will be working its way this evening throughout Nebraska. We're going to be seeing this kind of line of storms after sunset roll through. And SPC does mention we could have a really big concern for damaging winds here, given that we do actually have a hatch risk out there today. Which, we can't rule out potential, for damaging winds, possibly in excess of 60, 70 plus, could be quite possible. Along with that line here, we do have a pretty decent lower level jet associated with this system here. So we're going to have to, look out for that. Tornado wise, thankfully is going to be fairly fairly low end, but we do have a couple areas today where, we can't rule out tornadic activity. Like some areas out here by Nebraska, South Dakota, southeastern South Dakota, like north central Nebraska, and even a little bit of like east central Minnesota, northern Wisconsin. We got a little bit of a tornado threat here for today. A couple spin up tornadoes. That's really something we can't really rule out here for today. The good news, though, is that, if we did get tornadic activity, it would likely remain fairly weak and brief. It likely wouldn't be really anything super crazy. Good morning, Ashes. Hope you're doing good, my friend. Good to see you here. But yeah, so that's that. And then lastly, we do actually have a bit of a hail threat today as well. Mostly, hail size between 1 to 2 inches in diameter possible. The greatest threat for hail today is going to be up across like Nebraska, cutting through South Dakota, through Minnesota, up into Wisconsin here. Got that 15% risk out here in the yellow, as well as, the 5% risk overall here in the brown. Let's see, I got a comment coming in saying, I would like to know if Arizona will be affected. Arizona will not be affected by either, I should really say, by the tropical system, definitely not. Here in Arizona, we actually do have a little bit of a threat on the southeastern side of the state here, out there by like, Tuscan, I think it is. I'm not familiar with the names of these areas here, but out there by like, Safford and Sells and, some of those regions out there on the south side of the state, the southeastern side. We do have a little bit of a threat for storm activity. Good news, no tornadoes, thankfully. That's certainly good. We do have a little bit of a wind threat, though. There is going to be the potential here for, a bit of gusty winds, upwards of, up to 60 miles an hour within those storms being possible, but not really any hail threat either. So, you just got to look out for a little bit of gusty winds here, in the southeastern side here overall. So, that is that. Will Massachusetts be affected? Massachusetts will not be affected by either severe weather or tropical activity here. So, once again, regarding the tropics, I need you guys along the Gulf Coast just to monitor this. Like we mentioned, this system is going to be working its way to the west here over the next couple of days, in which, it could end up towards the coastal regions of Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama. It's still a little early. As of now, no big strength out of it. No hurricane, no tropical storm even right now expected with this system. At most, what I think is going to happen here is this thing will probably just be right around a tropical depression. But further updates and outlooks and stuff like that, could point in a different direction. So, I want you to stay tuned for that as, things are still evolving. We're still kind of in the early scale of everything here. But, it is definitely something that we should look into. Here's actually my website here that I have, that I've been working on and I love dearly. But yeah, you can see that overall risk here does include the northeastern side of the Gulf here, as well as the north central side here as well, which will be working its way westward. The system is going west instead of, some storms go east, some storms go west. This one's moving west here. Let's see here. Cass says, I hope the rain in Wisconsin clears some of that smoke from Canada. You guys been getting hit pretty hard out there? Here, let me, I did see it actually on satellite imagery towards the northern plains yesterday. Let me actually zoom out a little bit more. We're going to go regional sectors here. We're going to pull a big area. And we're going to actually hop our way over to the true color. There you go. Yeah, so this was from yesterday, you can see. You see how it's kind of hazy and smoky out over here? So that's what we're talking about here, that smoke. You can really see it at sunset. It's kind of hard to see during the day sometimes, but, at sunset, you can see before night mode takes over, you can just see that it's very, very hazy, very smoky. But yes, that would definitely be nice. You guys out in Wisconsin, though, y'all are, under a little bit of a risk today with today's severe weather threat here. We do actually have a slight risk for portions of the northern side of the state here. All the wildfires, yeah. So yeah, severe weather wise, tropical wise, we're definitely gonna keep you guys updated with everything going on here. We'll make sure to, keep y'all in the loop with everything, and y'all please don't hesitate to ask if y'all have any questions. I know some of you guys might have some questions about what's going on here. I will be more than happy to answer them to the best of my ability here to kind of keep you guys updated with everything that's going on. And if y'all haven't already, consider subscribing too. It'll be greatly appreciated. And also that that way you guys can stay up to date as well, with the weather, and we can keep you guys updated with these. I think I'm going to do a lot more short live streams here. That'll be pretty good. I might even do some storm spotting later today. I'm not too sure if we're going to do that, but anyways, let's see. Were we getting desperate for a hurricane? Nah, man. I don't want to deal with the damages they come with. I mean, me personally, I love a good storm. It's just the nature of me. I love a good storm. I love a good tropical system. But, the power outages and, all of that stuff sucks, dude. So, in a way, no. Not really. Not really want any of that. Anyways, but yeah, so there's a system now. They finally got KMLB up. That radar went down yesterday for some reason. Same with Jacksonville. I think Jacksonville's radar is still out. Yeah, it's been out for a while. But we got KMLB, which is good, so we can actively track this thing. But yeah, you can actually already start to see that spin to it. It's already starting to kind of show a little bit of a spin to it. Like I said, this is all going to be going over Florida today, driving a bit of a flooding threat and all that fun stuff here. Given that at least 15% chance probability that the WPC does have here, which if we go back to the risk here, you can see that yellow area. Got a lot of lemon lime activity going on here. But yeah, well, the biggest concern in Florida are on the central side, and I just so happen to be right in the middle of that, which is lovely. Let's see, your storms are good, but the aftermath of them is bad. Yep, that is true. Especially those tropical systems here, clean up after them kind of suck. And, they do bring a lot of damage, which isn't good, of course. But, once again, I mean, the thrill of a good storm now and then it's nice. But it comes with the price, that's for sure. That is for sure. Cheryl says if it's just simple thunder and lightning and rain, nothing severe, it's okay. Yeah, I feel that. Hopping back over to today's risk for severe weather, like I mentioned, we do have a pretty active day. I'm not sure if we're going to do coverage tonight. I might initiate some coverage because of this. Let me bring up this panel here real quickly. I do have models that I want to show you guys here. Is it under this here? No, I'm going to go ahead and close that one out here. I have so many tabs open. I've gotten so bad at that. It's like I open tabs and my computer hates me for it, that's for sure. All right, let's close you out as well. Hold on a minute. I do want to bring up models, though, more in depth here with you guys. Here, let me go ahead and bring up one of my favorite model sites here. Aguacero, definitely awesome. Let's see here. So let me bring that up. But yeah, we're going to look at the timing and stuff, like for the severe weather. Now, like I mentioned, a lot of it's going to be hitting relatively late, for a lot of the planes and stuff here. Let me go ahead and actually bring up the risk here, the day one outlook. So here is the day one outlook. So the main threat once again is up here in Nebraska for today. But if we actually go ahead and bring up the let's see here, the radar, future radar, overlaid composite here. And we'll actually take a look at the HRRR here. I'm going to have to add the SPC back here because it didn't stick for some reason. There we go. All right. So let's hop down to, let's do the 06 Zulu run. So we work our way down in time here. And you can kind of see once we approach, you guys can't really see the time here, but once we get right around midnight or so, or a little bit after midnight here, that's whenever the storm is going to be kind of fading out here. Around the time when things start here, it's going to be, relatively in the evening, kind of the early evening here. This is kind of showing right around 5 p.m. Eastern. that we could start to see maybe a couple cells developing here out through portions of like South Dakota, like western Nebraska here. Some storms up there by like Minnesota, portions of like Wisconsin and whatnot as well. But it's like as we work way down in time later this evening, you can kind of see how this develops into kind of like a line, that MCS we were talking about here, which is, just a pretty strong cluster of, potential severe storms and everything, in which, that'll be really going into the main risk area here right around 9 p.m. Eastern, roughly, of course. That'll be right around 8 o'clock p.m. Central Time. Of course, you guys are an hour behind us, so. But and of course, we work our way throughout the night here, and that line will kind of fade out as we approach our way after midnight here, kind of for the mid-morning hours here. So, we'll definitely, I definitely think we should do a little bit of coverage here. A lot of central Nebraska is going to be in that really decent concern out there for, the damaging winds and stuff here. So one thing I do want to look at here is this over here. This is our lower level winds. We're going to go ahead and load up here. Let's see here. So, oh yeah, wow, look at that. Holy cow. So this is HRRR here. I love how you have broken bow on a Boeing storm. But yeah, HRRR, now don't take this precisely, but HRRR does show possible gusts, well over 60, possibly like 70 miles an hour. So, given that hatch risk that we do have, wow, dude. Yeah, HRRR does not like to play with this here. I am going to remove the barbs, though. We're going to make this run a little bit better here. Also turn off this here as well. But yeah, you can see as that, that line of storms does roll through, we definitely do have quite a bit of a concern for, for damaging winds and stuff, which a lot of that seems to develop here, kind of early evening. The worst of it, though, is going to be right around, just after sunset here. This is kind of showing like the main line developing maybe right around like 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern or so, which would be like 6 Central and whatnot. But, definitely could be quite a nasty little line there of, of winds and all that stuff. So we're going to have to look out for that. That's one of the main threats here for today. Just being that MCS here. So we'll definitely keep you guys updated on all of that fun stuff. Anyways, all right, so we're going to hop back to the tropics here, y'all. I'm going to bring back up our satellite imagery here. So let's... Oh, there's the tab I was needing. So here you go, guys. This is the satellite this morning. You can see we do have a little bit of circulation here just off the eastern coast of Florida here. This is, the system that we're watching here. Like I mentioned here, this thing's not really much of anything super strong right now. It's not a tropical storm. It's not a hurricane, of course. Right now it's just a low. But it will have some impacts, for Florida today. We are going to see that potential for flooding, especially along the central sides of Florida out there. From this system here, it will be driving in a bit of a concern, for flooding. So we're going to have to look out for that. And especially, if you guys are in areas here in Florida that's prone to flooding, most of Florida is flat. But, if you are in an area that's prone to flooding, that floods quite often, just keep an eye out there for that. We do have a decent bit of flooding expected for today. But yeah, that system is going to work its way over Florida today here, which will go through Florida. And then out on the other side, it'll lead its way throughout portions of the Gulf here, into those warmer waters, of course, as well as, still carrying a decent amount of moisture here. I mean, like hopping back over to the models and stuff here. Models do suggest, like the GFS like we were looking at, does show a decent amount of moisture, still being a part of this system here, as you guys can kind of tell. If we zoom in here, you can see that kind of bluish green color here. That is, indicating a fair amount of moisture. And you can see on the SKU-T we have here, this is showing relatively saturated environment here. A huge layer of the clouds are saturated and, very thick cloud cover. so there definitely is a bit of moisture that still kind of persists as the storm does work its way here into the Gulf. I mean, like I mentioned though, the waters out here once again are like super super warm here. I mean, we're talking sea surface temperatures as of right now, right around 30 to 31 degrees Celsius out there. I mean, they are really 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 warm. And that system that we're talking about here, this thing is, according to the hurricane models, the main spaghetti models, they actually have this thing kind of going towards the warmer set of waters. So we're gonna have to see what that does. I mean, obviously, the moisture's there, the waters are warm enough here. One thing I do want to look at though is wind shear. Because wind shear, being the kinematics, is very important for tropical development here and whatnot. So let me go ahead here. Let's actually zoom zoom out a little bit here to the western Atlantic view here. And we're also going to look at our wind shear. So let's hop over to that here. So as that low kind of works its way over here to the west, it does appear that there is a bit of strong wind shear that does get on the backside here of this storm system here. We're going to have to see if that's going to be really a big concern or not. This is basically the wind shear between 850 to 200 millibar height. So basically just through a big chunk of the atmosphere. But yeah, on the back side of that system, it does look like we do have a bit of strong wind shear that'll, kind of work its way over like Florida and whatnot here. That could definitely prevent some development, which would be good. If we could, kind of prevent that storm from maturing. But, like we mentioned though, moisture wise, sea surface temperature wise, things are in line. It just depends. We'll just have to see, how strong the wind shear and all that stuff is. But hopefully it won't be anything, super, super crazy or anything like that. But all right, everybody. Well, that's going to wrap up the morning update. I appreciate y'all for joining. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. It'll be greatly appreciated. We're going to roll off here for now. But we'll catch you guys in another update here this afternoon. I'm going to go live again this afternoon to give you guys some more updates on the system. All right, everybody. Thank you all for joining. Appreciate it. You guys take care. Have a great rest of your day. Try not to worry about the system. Once again, as of now, things appear to be fairly weak with the storm here. One last look at the spaghetti models. Once again, still kind of all over the place. Some have the storm going a little bit further to the south than others. And, there still is a bit of a gap here. Even in the intensity here, I mean, we're looking pretty chill. Nothing, not even tropical storm related. You can see most of the models just have it subtropical storm status. So that's certainly some good news. But all right, everybody, y'all take care. Thank you all for joining. Y'all have a wonderful rest of your day, and we'll see you guys later on this afternoon. All right, everybody, thanks for joining. Catch y'all on the next update. Peace out, my friends. See ya later on. You're welcome, Kat. No problem.